The dark here is not an absence. It is a presence. A thick, velvety substance that presses against your eyes, fills your ears, and settles in the hollow of your chest with a weight that is both physical and ancient. It is the dark of a world before fire, a deep and total belonging to the night. You lie not on the earth, but within it, cradled in the fine, ancient ash of a sleeping volcano, the granules still whispering with the memory of a sun that has long since bled away beyond the edge of the world. Your awareness is not a thought, but a slow tide. It ebbs and flows with the rhythms of the land itself. There is a hard, cool pressure of a basalt stone against your shoulder blade, a constant, undeniable point of reference in the formless night. The gritty texture beneath your palms, each tiny particle of volcanic grit, holding the day's final warmth like a secret. A wind, born from the cooling of the plains 100 miles distant, moves through the dry grass. You do not hear it so much as feel its passage, a subtle change in pressure against your skin, a sigh across your cheek carrying scents that are the only language of distance, the damp iron tang of a waterhole you have never seen, the dry, peppery dust of wilted sage, the faint, musky trace of a herd that passed at dusk, a ghost of movement lingering in the air. In the immense, breathing quiet, sound ceases to be something you listen to and becomes something you are surrounded by. The rhythmic, sawing chorus of 10,000 insects is not a noise, but the very hum of the darkness, a vibration you feel through the earth against your spine. Somewhere in the invisible scrub, a sudden, piercing shriek, brief, sharp, terminal punctuates the hum. It is a fact, not a tragedy, a note in the song. And then, from a depth of distance so profound it seems to originate in the core of the world, the deep, rumbling cough of a big cat. The sound does not travel to your ears. It arrives in your bones. It is a low-frequency reminder of the hierarchy of flesh, a broadcast that bypasses thought and speaks directly to the marrow, where it resonates with a primal understanding that needs no words. You are a creature among creatures, awake and vulnerable in the cradle of existence. Your eyes, wide and dark adapted, do not see objects but perceive the slow subtraction of shadows. The jagged silhouette of an acacia tree is not a tree, but a place where the star-speckled infinity of the sky is gently torn. The faint, silvered gleam of a dry riverbed below is a ghost of liquidity, a memory of water traced in pale stone. There is no you here, separate from the chill of the rock or the sigh of the wind. You are a node in a network of pure sensation, a gathering point for the coolness, the scent, the sound, the pressure. The first light of consciousness is not a dawn, but this, the slow, patient accumulation of the world's impressions in the silent vessel of a body, waiting in the original dark for a thought that has not yet learned how to form. And from this saturated silence, from this patient gathering of the world's raw data, a pattern begins to coalesce. It is not a vision, but a pull, a gentle internal tipping from pure reception towards a whisper of recognition. The hard pressure of the basalt stone, the scent of the distant herd on the wind, the memory of your own thirst, these disparate threads, woven together in the loom of the night, begin to form the faintest outline of a question. It is not a word. It is an inclination, a slight tension in the muscles of your legs, a tilt of your head, a fraction of an inch to capture a softer set of moisture on the altered air. The dark is no longer a uniform blanket. Without a single ray of light, a path is beginning to suggest itself. It starts not with sight, but with the deep bodily memory of where water was found when the sun was last in the sky. You are not thinking of the waterhole. You are being drawn towards it by a million tiny remembered sensations. The cool mud between your toes, the specific way the reeds whispered, the easing of a dry throat. The map is not drawn behind your eyes. It is etched into your nerves, your muscles, your thirst. You are learning to see in the dark, not with light, but with the ghost of past satisfaction, and the world begins to organize itself not into shapes, but into meanings. That way is quenched thirst. This way is the hard rock. That sound is the end of something small. This new seeing is a heavy labor. It demands a vigilance that is a physical weight on your temples, a tautness in your neck. To move from being a creature purely of the landscape to one that is beginning, neuron by slow neuron, to navigate it is the first and greatest tax on the mind. Every shadow must be cross-referenced with the library of touch, taste, and consequence stored in the flesh. That lumpy, vertical form against the star-flecked void is not a termite mound. It is the gritty dash, scratch, dash, that dash catches dash the dash skin, the dash houses dash the dash bitterness dash inside. You know this because your palm remembers the dry collapse of its wall, your tongue remembers the frantic, sour tang of the insects, the unsatisfactory crunch. Its shape in the gloom is a full sensory prophecy. You shift, the ash whispering beneath you, and your gaze, a mere turning of your head, a few degrees, falls upon a different formation. Lower, wider, a smoother curve against the night. This one carries a different prophecy. Your shoulder muscles remember leaning into its sun-warmed curve at midday. Your back remembers the relief of its solid support. Its shape promises not food, but respite, a place to be still. This is your geography, a chart of affordances and warnings, written in the language of memory and need. The distant cough of the cat is not just a sound. It is a point on this map. It marks a zone of compression, of heightened attention. The insect hum is the safe baseline, the white noise of an undisturbed night. The small terminal shriek was a brief, localized point of danger, now past. You are listening to the security report of the world, and so you rise. The movement is not a decision announced by a thinking self, but a flowing response to the completed calculation of your internal map. The pull towards the remembered water is now the strongest thread in the web of sensations. You move not through space, but through a tapestry of known and unknown qualities. Each step is a test, a gentle press of the foot against the ground, listening for the crack of a twig you cannot see, feeling for the shift from gritty ash to the tougher, springier texture of savanna grass. You are a blind man reading a text written in textures, slopes, and scents. The darkness parts before you not as light would part it, but as a succession of familiar touches and confirmed expectations. This is the dip where the thorn bush snags. This is the slight incline that leads to the flat stone. This is the smell of the particular resinous shrub that grows near the water's edge. You are perhaps halfway to your goal when the darkness before you changes, not in form but in quality. A patch of shadow directly in your path feels wrong. It lacks the crisp, familiar edges of a rock or a bush. It is too soft, too deep, too still in a way that the living night is not. You freeze. Your internal map, so confident a moment ago, now shows a blank area, an absence of data that rings louder than any alarm. It is the shape of the unknown predator, or the hidden ravine, or simply a density of fear your own mind has projected. This is the other side of learning to see in the dark, learning to see the holes in your own vision. You stand a statue of flesh in the whispering grass, every sense straining to fill in the blank. The choice is presented without words, to trust the old, deep pull to water, or to heed the new, sharp warning of the unexplored shadow. The long night holds its breath, the impenetrable shadow before you does not move. It holds its form, a pool of deeper night that your senses cannot parse. The old bodily pull to waterhole tugs at your core, a deep, rhythmic demand. But this new, silent warning is a cold knot in your stomach, a stillness in your muscles that overrides all other urges. This is the first true crossroads, felt not as a thought, but as a conflict of currents within you, the current of need flowing against the current of preservation. Minutes pass, measured only by the slow, patient beat of your own heart. The shadow yields no data. It gives no scent, makes no sound, betrays no tremor of life. And in this extended stillness, a strange thing begins to happen. The sharp edges of your fear, the focused alarm on the unknown shape, start to soften and blur. The image of the shadow itself begins to waver in your mind's eye, its borders melting its darkness, bleeding into the memory of the basalt stone at your back, the scent of the wind, the remembered grit of the termite mound. The present danger slowly dissolves, merging with the tapestry of past sensations. You have not moved, but you are no longer fully here, rigid in the grass. The vigilance that was a physical weight begins to leach away, not into sleep, but into a state that is neither waking nor rest. Your eyes are open, still fixed on the place where the shadow was, but they no longer send signals of alarm. They simply receive the gentle monochrome world of starlight and silhouette. And within you, the library of the day, the pressure, the scent, the sound, the grit, begins to quietly reorganize itself. It is no longer a practical guide for navigation, but a liquid pool of impressions swirling without purpose. The cough of the big cat merges with the feel of the volcanic ash. The shriek of the small creature becomes the taste of the bitter berry. The hard comfort of the basalt stone transforms into the cool promise of the waterhole mud. There is no story, no sequence. There is only a gentle, swirling collage of was, freed from the tyranny of what is and what must be done. In this state, the fear is gone. The shadow is just another element in the swirl. You are, for the first time, not a creature reacting to the world, but a quiet space where the world's echoes play. This is the birth of the inner realm. The first dream is not a narrative with beasts and journeys. It is this ambient, peaceful confusion of sense memories, a mental sigh that follows the long exhalation of the day's vigilance. It is the mind's first tentative claim to a territory of its own, a soft refuge built from the recycled materials of waking life. For a span of time that has no measure, you exist in this silent swirling eddy until the pull of the body, the dry mouth, the stiffening limbs, becomes once again the strongest current, gently pulling you back to the shores of the immediate physical night. You blink. The world reassembles itself into solid forms. The shadow ahead is still there, but its threatening ambiguity has faded. It is now just a part of the landscape again, perhaps a dense, low bush, its mystery dispelled not by light, but by the mental journey you have just completed. The primal fear has been processed. diluted in the waters of that first dream state. The path is clear once more. With a slow, deliberate motion, you take a step to the side, giving the shadow a wide berth, your movement now one of simple, pragmatic caution, not paralyzed terror. You have discovered a new tool, more vital than the sharpest stone. The ability to retreat inwardly, to soften the world's hard edges with the gentle chaos of memory, and return to face it anew. The ground begins to slope downwards, a subtle declivity you feel in your calves. The air changes, gaining weight and a cool, mineral dampness. The scent of water is no longer a ghost on the wind. It is the air itself. You have reached the place your body remembered. But as you step from the whispering grass onto the cool, packed mud of the bank, a new symphony of sound washes over you, shattering the last vestiges of the dream's peace. The waterhole is not a place of quiet communion. It is the bustling, raucous crossroads of the night shift, and you have arrived in the middle of its chaotic parliament. The stillness you carried within you is instantly erased by the outer world's violent aliveness. The first sound is the wild, shrieking laughter. It erupts from multiple points around the dark mirror of the water, a hysterical, yipping chorus that climbs and breaks like jagged glass. Hyenas. Their calls are not barks or howls, but manic gossip, screams of argument and mockery that stitch the darkness with sound. Between these bursts comes the deep, worried lowing of a Cape buffalo, a giant shadow shifting uneasily at the water's edge, its hoof sucking at the mud with thick, wet sounds. From the reeds, the splash and squeal of hippos settling territorial disputes, with gaping jaws and short, explosive charges. The air thrums with tension, thick with the musk of wet hide, dung, and algae. This is not the hierarchy of the lone predator's cough. This is the messy, cacophonous democracy of thirst. You freeze at the tree line, your calculated journey collapsing into a single urgent need to become invisible. Every lesson of seeing in the dark reverses itself. Now you must be the shadow that is not seen. You sink down, not into a crouch, but into the very ground, lowering your profile behind a tuft of sedge grass. Your breathing, which had been slow and deep, shallows until it is nearly silent. You are a collection of closed surfaces, eyelids lowered to slits to hide their gleam, lips sealed, hands drawn in. This is the true morning ritual of the Pleistocene, not a stretching towards the sun, but a contraction into absolute awareness. Your eyes, useless in the deep dark, are now preternaturally sharp in this lesser gloom, reading the ballet of shadows at the water's edge. You watch the hyena pack, their sloped backs and powerful necks clear as they jostle and snap at each other, their laughter a constant, nerve-shredding soundtrack. You time your existence to their patterns. You see a smaller one driven from the pack, slinking away with a yelp. You note the buffalo, a mountain of grumbling irritation, finally lumbering away into the night, its departure leaving a temporary, quieter void. This is the calculus of survival, performed in real time on an abacus of fear and opportunity. The thirst is a fire in your throat, but the water is a ring of noise and teeth. To move is to risk triggering a chain reaction you cannot control. A single snapped twig could turn the pack's manic attention from their own squabbles to you. So you wait, you become part of the mud. You listen past the hyena's laughter to the softer sounds, the lap of water, the click of a nightjar, the direction of the wind. You are waiting for the brief, golden moment of collective inattention, for the shift in the social dynamics that will open a window just wide enough, just long enough. The night stretches, the laughter ebbs and flows. Stars wheel imperceptibly overhead. Your body screams for water, but your mind, honed by the dark and tempered by the first dream, holds the line. You are not waiting passively. You are hunting for a moment of safety, and finally, it comes. A commotion erupts on the far side of the pool, a real fight, not a squabble. Two hyenas lock in a snarling tangle over some scrap. The entire pack's focus, like a single organism, swivels towards the noise, their chorus rising to a fever pitch. Now, the command is not a word. It is a release of coiled springs. In one fluid, silent motion, you are up and moving, not towards the main bank, but to a tiny, overhung inlet you spotted during your long watch. You are on your belly, sliding forward like an otter, your whole world narrowing to the space between the reeds. The cool, black water meets your face. You drink not in gulps, but in long, silent draws, the water a shocking cold that soothes the fire within. 10 seconds. 15. The hysterical laughter reaches a crescendo behind you. You stop. You retreat just as silently back into the embrace of the grass and shadow, your belly full of coolness, your body thrumming with success. You have performed your first, most vital chore of the day. You have woken, not to the sun, but to the brutal, demanding reality of shared existence, and you have navigated it. You retreat from the water's edge, leaving the cacophony behind, carrying within you the quiet victory of water and the exhausted. Profound knowledge that the entire day will be a variation of this, the patient, perilous search for the next opening in a world that offers nothing freely. The victory of the water is a quiet, cool sphere in your stomach, a private triumph that the shrieking hyenas will never know. But it is a fragile peace. As you melt back from the water's edge, every step away from the chaotic chorus feels like a step toward a different, more profound kind of exhaustion. The adrenaline that propelled you to the inlet and back now drains away, leaving your limbs feeling heavy, your mind thick with the residue of hypervigilance. The night is still deep, an obsidian vault overhead, but the elemental task of thirst has been answered. A new, more subtle need begins to whisper, not a demand from the body, but a pull from the hands. Your fingers, curled and still damp from the water, feel empty. They twitch with a memory of their own, a tactile ghost. It is the memory of a certain heft, of a reassuring imbalance, of a sharp, clean line meeting resistant matter. The chaotic social world of the waterhole, all noise and negotiation, and tooth is behind you. Now you crave the silent, solitary dialogue between a hand and a stone. You do not go looking for a stone. You are drawn to the right stone, guided by a template etched into your motor memory. Your feet carry you away from the soft, damp lowlands, up a gentle, pebble-strewn rise where the ground is firmer. Here, the moonlight, what little there is, seems to catch on pale, exposed limestone. Your eyes are not your primary sense now. Your hands are. You move slowly, your fingertips brushing the ground, reading the text of the earth like braille. You reject a dozen candidates without a conscious thought. This one is too light, pitted with holes. It is not remarkable to look at a dull, gray lump the size of a mango, but to your touch, it is perfect. Its weight is substantial, but not cumbersome. Its shape is oval, with one face pleasingly flat, a stable platform, and on the other side, a promising crystalline edge peeks through a weathered rind, a secret waiting to be revealed. You sit, the cool earth beneath you, the silent night around you. The world narrows to the space between your lap and the ground. You are no longer a creature hiding or drinking. You are a creator, alone with a possibility. You take a smaller, harder stone, a hammerstone you've carried, its surface dented from 1,000 such conversations, into your other hand. The first strike is not an act of force, but of introduction. A precise, controlled tap where the crystalline edge meets the dull rind. A sharp clack, clean and dry, echoes softly. A single, long flake, the length of your thumb, springs away, leaving behind a glowing inner face of glossy, smoke-gray stone. This is the moment. This is the true morning ritual. Not the frantic drink, but this deliberate act of revelation. You are not making a tool. You are unmaking the stone, guiding it along the hidden planes of its own structure, asking it to shed its useless skin to reveal the lethal, beautiful logic within. Each subsequent tap is a question, and the stone answers with a crack, a spall, a new, sharper line emerging. You turn it, assess, strike again. The rough oval begins to transform, one face becoming a series of scalloped, sharp edges, the other remaining the smooth, solid platform for your palm. This work consumes you. The hyenas, the coming dawn, your own lingering thirst all fade into a distant murmur. There is only the conversation between intention and fracture. Your breath steadies to match the rhythm of your strikes. A soft inhale, a focused tap, the quiet scatter of debris. You are extending your will into the world, not through muscle against flesh, but through intelligence against matter. You are building an extension of your own hand, an artificial tooth, a hardened piece of intent. When you finally stop blowing away the dust, you hold not a rock, but a consciousness given form. A crude, beautiful hand axe. Its edge gleams dully, a promise of cutting, of slicing, of transforming the dead into the useful. You run your thumb along the edge, not testing it, but knowing it. A thin, red line appears on your calloused skin. Good. The confirmation is a quiet thrill. You have imposed order. You have begun your day not by reacting to the world's chaos, but by introducing a small, sharp island of your own control into it. You slip the hammerstone into a fold of hide at your side and stand, the new hand axe feeling innate in your grip, like a limb you never knew you were missing. The tool is ready. Now it needs a purpose. But purpose is not a solitary thing. It exists in relation to others. With the newfound confidence of the tool in your hand, your mind returns to the waterhole. Not as a desperate supplicant this time, but as a strategist. The memory of the shrieking parliament is clear. The water is life, but the bank is a theater of constant, dangerous negotiation. To simply own a sharp stone is nothing. To understand how to use the chaos to find the fleeting opening, that is the real skill. You do not approach directly. You circle downwind, moving with the predator's patience you have learned from watching the cats. You find a vantage point behind a thorny thicket, downwind of the main approaches, and then you wait again. But this wait is different from the fearful paralysis before the shadow or the desperate calculation for a drink. This is a study. You are not hiding from the world. You are observing its machinery. The first light of false dawn begins to bleach the eastern sky from black to indigo, painting the scene in shades of gray. The cast of characters shifts. The hyena pack, their night of raucous feasting and squabbling done, begins to slink away, their laughter fading into the distance, replaced by a tentative chirping birdsong. The great grumbling buffalo has gone. Now smaller players emerge. A pair of jackals, twitchy and efficient, dart in to lap quickly before vanishing. A family of warthogs trots down with comical seriousness, the adults facing outward, tusks lowered. As the young ones drink, you watch the rhythms of arrival and departure, of challenge and retreat. You see the invisible lines of tension between species, the careful distances kept. A lone antelope, a young kudu, approaches the water's edge, its large, sensitive ears swiveling like satellite dishes, every muscle taut. It is alone as you are. You watch it lower its head to drink, its head snapping up after 2 seconds to scan, then down again for 3. Its entire being is a calculation of risk versus reward. This is the gambit. This is the perpetual wager every creature makes. You are not so different from the kudu. Your sharp stone does not exempt you from this fundamental law. It merely changes the variables. Perhaps it allows you to process a carcass faster if you find one, to cut through tough hide to reach meat before a competitor. But here at the water, the stone is of little direct use. The real tool here is your understanding of the pattern. You watch as the kudu, spooked by a sudden movement in the reeds, explodes away in a series of soaring bounds. The moment it leaves, a vacuum forms. The other drinkers are momentarily still, assessing the vanished threat. It is a window, not as dramatic as the hyena fight, but a smaller, quieter opportunity, born from a ripple of fear you did not cause. This is the lesson. Survival is not one great, heroic act. It is a series of these small, perfectly timed investments. A drink taken in a lull, a tool made in the quiet, a moment of movement seized when the collective attention shifts. The waterhole is not just a source of water. It is the great teacher of timing. You have your tool. You have observed the game. The prize is not just the water in your belly, but the knowledge in your mind. You have learned to see the invisible currents of caution and opportunity that flow between all living things at this shared, fraught oasis. You rise from your observation post as the true dawn begins to gild the tops of the acacia trees. The first, most perilous hours of the day are complete. You move away from the water not with the frantic relief of escape, but with the quiet purpose of a player who understands the board, ready to apply the morning's lessons to the next gamble they hunt. The victory of the water is a quiet, cool sphere in your stomach, a private triumph that the shrieking hyenas will never know. But it is a fragile peace. As you melt back from the water's edge, every step away from the chaotic chorus feels like a step toward a different, more profound kind of exhaustion. The adrenaline that propelled you to the inlet and back now drains away, leaving your limbs feeling heavy, your mind thick with the residue of hypervigilance. The night is still deep, an obsidian vault overhead, but the elemental task of thirst has been answered. The bloody weight of the meat is a sweet burden. The throbbing in your ankle is a distant, rhythmic counterpoint to the thrum of satisfaction in your chest. You do not head for the open plain, but for the familiar, a shallow sandstone overhang at the base of the kopje you know from other days. It is not a home, but it is a known place, a backstop against the world, with a clear view of the approaches and a patch of shade that lasts long into the afternoon. As you approach, a small, dark shape detaches itself from the shade and runs toward you on skinny legs. A child. Your sibling's child. His eyes are wide, not with fear, but with a hungry, desperate hope that fixes on the red strips of meat in your arms. He says nothing, but his presence is a question that fills the air. You grunt, lowering your burden onto a flat rock already stained from 100 such butcheries. You take a piece, not the best cut, but a good one, a strip from the haunch, and then you pick up a sharp, palm-sized flake of stone discarded from some past tool-making session. You place the meat on the rock, and with a hand stained dark brown to the wrist, you put the sharp flake into the child's small, waiting hand. You close his fingers around it, your own bloody ones wrapped over his, and guide his hand down towards the meat. Together you make a sawing motion. The flake bites, separating a manageable piece. He looks from the cut meat to your face, understanding dawning. This is not just food given. It is a method transferred. You nod towards the piece you've helped him cut. He grabs it and scurries back to the shade, his small teeth already tearing at the raw, rich flesh. The others return as the sun begins its long afternoon slide. First comes your sister, her foraging basket half full of tubers and small, sour fruits. Her eyes, tired from the meticulous search, immediately find the pile of meat, and a profound weariness seems to lift from her shoulders. Then comes the old man, your mother's brother, leaning on a walking stick, his own hunt likely fruitless. He sees the meat and lets out a low, appreciative hum that is the closest thing to a thank you this world offers. No one celebrates. No one cheers. There is only a quiet, focused settling. The meat is the center of gravity now. You take the hand axe again and begin the real work of butchery, dividing the spoils with an economy of motion learned from a lifetime of scarcity. The best muscle, the long back strap, is cut into thick strips. The tougher sinew from the legs is set aside. The long bones, cracked open with precise blows of your hammerstone, reveal their treasure, the rich, fatty, pink-white marrow. This is the prize of prizes. You scoop it out with a finger, offering the first, creamiest bit to the old man, whose teeth can no longer tear flesh. He accepts with a nod, his eyes closing in pleasure. As you work, the child watches, his hunger momentarily sated. He holds the sharp flake you gave him, turning it over in his hands, feeling its edge with a tentative thumb. You take a smaller discarded bone and place it before him. You point at the bone, then at the flake in his hand, then make a scraping motion. Hesitantly, he tries. The flake skids off the hard surface. You adjust his grip, showing him the angle. He tries again. This time it bites, scraping off a string of dried tendon. A tiny spark of achievement lights his face. He is not playing. He is practicing. The lesson is not about the bone. It is about the relationship between hand, eye, and edge. You are giving him more than food. You are giving him the first key to the universe, that the world can be altered, that hunger can be met with more than just waiting. The sharp rock is the first step on the path that led you to the hand axe, to the kill site. to this moment of provision. Its gift is the gift of a future. But as the division of the meat continues, a subtle tension enters the shade of the overhang. The old man's eyes, sharp and missing nothing, follow your hands. Your sister, pounding a tuber on a stone, glances over at the pile of marrow-rich bones. The child, sensing the shift, goes still. The communal gratitude begins to crystallize into individual assessment. The gift of the sharp rock is for the future. The division of the meat is about the now, and the now is governed by a complex, unspoken calculus of need, contribution, and power. It begins without words. Your sister reaches for one of the larger marrow bones you had set closer to your own spot. Her hand moves with a casual possessiveness that is a clear claim. A low rumble issues from the old man's chest. It is not a growl, but a vocalized objection. He taps his walking stick once on the ground. Toke. She freezes, her hand hovering. Her eyes flash to him, then to you. The air thickens. The argument is not about greed. It is about a deep biological accounting. She carried a child, a tremendous caloric debt. She foraged tubers, a steady, low-yield contribution the old man cannot hunt. His contribution is his memory, his knowledge of water sources in the dry season, his stories that map the social landscape. Your contribution is the meat itself, the sudden, massive influx of energy. Your sister's fingers close around the bone. The child needs the fat, she says, her voice low but hard. His bones grow soft. This is a powerful claim, an appeal to the future of the band itself. The old man's lips pull back, not in a snarl, but in a grimace of disdain. My memory holds the way to the spring that never fails, he counters, his voice a dry rustle. Without it, this meat is your last. His claim is about survival infrastructure, the map in his mind that is as vital as protein. They both look at you. You are the arbiter, the hunter, the provider, the momentary center of gravity. The bloody hand axe rests by your knee. The weight of the decision is immense. It is not a question of fairness, but of triage. You look at the child, whose eyes are now wide with a different kind of hunger, the hunger for stability, for the absence of conflict. You look at the deep lines of exhaustion on your sister's face. You look at the old man's milky, knowing eyes. You do not speak, you move. You pick up the bone in question. With a decisive crack, you break it in two over the edge of the flat rock. The sound is shockingly loud in the tense silence. You hand the slightly larger half, oozing marrow, to your sister. You hand the other half to the old man. Then, from your own share of the backstrap, you cut a thick strip and place it before the child. The redistribution is your verdict. The child's future claim is honored. The old man's foundational knowledge is respected. Your sister's labor and burden are recognized, and your own primacy as the provider is silently asserted by the fact that you dictated the terms. The tension does not vanish, but it dissipates, sublimating into the practical acts of eating. The old man grunts, appeased. Your sister nods once, sharply, and turns back to her pounding. The child silently picks up the meat and begins to chew. This is the first law, the first government, not carved in stone, but written in the distribution of calories. It is messy, fraught, and deeply human. The gift of the sharp rock promises a future of skill. The argument over the meat share is the gritty, necessary politics of the present, the constant renegotiation of the social contract around the only thing that truly matters, the energy to see another dawn. As the last of the daylight stains the sky orange and the first stars prick through, you chew your own portion of meat, tasting both its richness and the metallic aftertaste of leadership. The day's final chore is complete. The community for now is in balance. The marrow-rich silence that follows the redistribution is a dense, palpable thing. The intense focus of butchery and the sharp, silent negotiation have drained the little camp under the overhang. The child, his belly full for the first time in days, has curled into a ball against the warm sandstone, his breathing already deepening into sleep. The old man sucks methodically on his piece of bone, his eyes half closed, retreating into the inner landscape of memory. Your sister works the tuber paste into round cakes for later, her movements slow and rhythmic. The energy of crisis is past, leaving behind a profound lethargy. The sun is a blazing weight directly overhead, pressing the very air down onto the savanna. The heat shimmers in visible waves above the grass, and the insects have fallen into a stupefied, buzzing torpor. Movement is not just difficult now. It is a form of madness. The body, having secured its immediate fuel, demands its due. Rest. You slide back from the flat butchering stone, the grit sticking to your blood-smeared forearms. You do not go far, just to the deepest part of the overhang's shadow where the stone is coolest, radiating a gentle subterranean chill. You lower yourself onto your side, the aches of the day, the twisted ankle, the strained muscles from the stalk, and the frantic scavenge flaring briefly before settling into a dull chorus. You are not sleeping. You are subsiding. This is not the unconsciousness of night. It is a conscious surrender. Your eyes remain open, but their focus softens, dissolving the sharp lines of the acacia trees at the clearing's edge into green-gold blurs. The world becomes an impressionist painting of heat and light. The distant call of a hawk circling high on a thermal stretches into a long, lazy smear of sound. The buzz of a single fly near your ear is not an irritation, but a point of sonic focus, a tiny, orbiting moon in the sensory void. Your thoughts, so recently coiled tight around plans and calculations, unravel. They do not form narratives or worries. They become simple, drifting sense memories. The cool shock of the water in the dark, the satisfying clack of the flint flaking, the metallic scent of the eland's blood, the weight of the child's hand under yours. These images float, disconnected and peaceful, in the warm syrup of your mind. This is the luxury that follows the gamble. The brain, having navigated a dozen life or death calculations since midnight, now enters a state of defragmentation. It is processing the events not for lessons, but for storage, stripping the sharp emotions of fear and urgency from the memories, leaving behind only the pure data of experience. Time loses its meaning. The sun's crawl across the sky is imperceptible. You are a creature of pure present, anchored only by the cool stone against your cheek and the slow, steady drum of your own heart. This nap is an act of profound trust. Trust that the old man's ears are still sharp enough for a warning. Trust that the hyenas are sated, the lions asleep. It is a vulnerability permitted only because of the earlier vigilance, a dividend paid by the hard work of survival. For these precious, weightless minutes, you are not a hunter, a scavenger, or an arbiter. You are simply an animal, resting in a patch of shade on a hot planet, your existence momentarily requiring nothing, demanding nothing, justifying nothing. It is the closest thing to peace the Pleistocene ever offers. A change in the light, a slight lengthening of the shadows, eventually pulls you back, not with a jolt, but with a gentle rising tide of awareness. You blink, the world reassembles itself into solid forms. The flies have gathered in a small, busy cloud over the butchering stone. The child stirs. The old man is asleep, his head nodding onto his chest. Your sister has finished her cakes and is now engaged in a different, quieter labor. The rest is over. The time for the slow, patient, feminine magic of gathering and weaving has begun. She sits cross-legged, a pile of gathered sedge grass and flexible willow twigs beside her. In her lap is the beginnings of a burden basket, a wide, shallow bowl, taking shape from chaos. Her hands move with a hypnotic, repetitive certainty that is the absolute opposite of the hunt's explosive tension. There is no gamble here, only gradual accumulation. You watch, your mind still soft from the nap. Her fingers select a long, damp strand of sedge. She twists it with another, strengthening it. Then she begins to weave it through the radiating spokes of willow that form the basket skeleton. Over, under, pulled tight. The pattern is ancient, learned from her mother, who learned it from hers, a chain of knowledge passed down through a lineage that has nothing to do with the spear. This is the technology of containment, of carrying. The hunt takes. The basket holds, scritch pull, scritch pull. The sound is tiny, dry, and infinitely patient. It is the sound of civilization in its most nascent form. Each pull of the fiber tightens the structure, creates a vessel where before there was only scattered grass. She is not just making a tool. She is creating a future possibility, a future where more tubers can be carried from the far patch, where a greater haul of nuts can be transported, where a newborn can be cradled in something other than bare arms. Her work is an act of faith in a tomorrow that will require carrying. Her rhythm is a kind of timekeeping. Over, under, pull equals 1 breath. 100 breaths equal a hand's width of basket. It is a meditation on process, where the goal is not a climax, but a steady state of making. You think of your own work with the stone, the sharp, singular strikes, the decisive fractures. Her work is additive, cumulative. Yours is reductive. Both transform the raw world into utility, but their songs are different. The napping song is one of percussion and sudden change. The weaving song is one of friction and gradual becoming. As the basket grows, so does a quiet sense of abundance. The meat is transient, already being consumed, but the basket, once finished, will remain. It is a capital investment in the band's efficiency. You see the child, now awake, watching her with the same focused curiosity he showed you. He picks up a stray piece of grass and mimics her motions, his small fingers clumsy but earnest. The knowledge is being transferred again, not through crisis, but through calm imitation. This is the other half of the day's economy. The frantic, male-gendered drama of the hunt and the scavenge is only possible because of this patient, female-gendered labor of preparation and preservation. They are two halves of a single organism. The spear brings the sudden windfall. The basket ensures no part of the windfall is wasted. As the afternoon light turns golden, painting her concentrated face in warm relief, the scritch pull of her weaving becomes the heartbeat of the camp, a soothing metronome measuring out the peaceful, productive interval between the morning's trauma and the unknown demands of the coming night. The nap restored the body. Her weaving restores a sense of order, of gentle, purposeful growth. The day is turning. The golden light deepens. bleeding toward amber. The hypnotic scritch pull of the weaving continues, a sound so woven into the afternoon it seems to come from the earth itself. But a new awareness begins to stir within you, separate from the rhythm of the basket. It is an awareness born from the belly, not from hunger, but from a faint, fluttering discomfort, a gurgling tightness that has been building since you ate the rich, cold marrow. The meat was life, but your body protests its sudden, heavy arrival. Your sister sees the slight tightening around your eyes. Without a word, she stops her weaving, her hands moving to a small, separate pile of plants beside her. She selects a few sprigs of a small-leafed, fragrant herb, crushes them briefly between her palms, and holds them out to you. You take the leaves and place them in your mouth. They are bitter, intensely so, a shocking, astringent green taste that makes your saliva flood. But beneath the bitterness is a cooling, soothing sensation that seems to spread down your throat and into the complaining hollow of your stomach. This is not food. This is knowledge. She has just spoken the oldest language in the world, one that predates words, the language of remedy. You know many names, but they are not labels. They are complex, multi-sensory files. That tall, purple-flowered plant by the seasonal stream is not foxglove. It is the dash, shaking dash, sickness dash, and dash the dash, long dash, sleep dash. A thing of great power and greater danger, to be used only by those who know the precise, tiny dose. The low, creeping plant with the yellow sap is the pain lever, its sticky resin pressed onto wounds to seal and soothe. The gnarled root she dug this morning is the hunger delayer, to be chewed on desperate journeys when no game is found. Your education in this green scripture was not through lessons, but through acute, often painful observation. You learned the properties of the stomach settler herb by watching an ailing elder chew it and recover. You learned the deadly nature of the dreamberry vine from finding a baboon troop paralyzed beneath it, their spirits flown to some chaotic otherworld while their bodies lay twitching. Each plant is a verb, an outcome, a potential contained in leaf, root, and berry. Your sister is a librarian of this silent, vital archive. Her knowledge is the band's first line of defense against the invisible assaults of infection, poison, and pain. As the bitter herb does its work, calming the riot in your gut, you feel a gratitude deeper than that for the meat. The meat sustains the flesh. Her knowledge sustains the possibility of continued existence within that flesh. The child, ever watchful, crawls over. He points to the stomach settler plant, then to his own mouth, a question in his eyes. Your sister shakes her head firmly, points to his belly, and makes a calm, flat-handed gesture. Not now. She then points to the plant, makes a pained face, and mimics chewing, only when needed. The lesson is imparted. This is not food. It is a key for a specific lock. The knowledge passes not as theory, but as a rule tied to consequence. He will remember the association, the plant, the pained face, the forbidding gesture long before he learns the word for indigestion. The library acquires another cautious user. As the last of the bitterness fades on your tongue, replaced by a settled calm, the world outside your overhang begins its transition. The hammering heat of the day softens. Long, slanting shadows stretch across the grassland like grasping fingers, and with the fading of the light comes a shifting of the world's actors. The grazers become more nervous, clustering together. The hidden things begin to stir. It is in this crepuscular hush that you see him. A shadow at the tree line, different from the others. Not the skulking, sideways slink of the jackal, nor the portly waddle of the warthog. This shadow moves with a loose-limbed, curious pause. It stops, staring directly at your camp. A wolf. He does not approach the meat scraps, though the scent must be maddening. He stands just beyond the distance where you would normally throw a stone or shout a warning. His ears are pricked forward, his head cocked. His eyes, reflecting the low amber light, hold not the blank hunger of the hyena, but a keen, assessing intelligence. This is not a scavenger hoping for a lapse. This is an observer. Everyone in the camp has frozen. The child presses against your sister. The old man's hand tightens on his walking stick. Your own grip finds the familiar haft of your hand axe. But you do not rise. You do not threaten. There is a familiarity in his posture. You have seen this wolf before, or one like him. You saw his pack trailing the great herds just as you do. You have both feasted from a distance on the same lion kill. You are competitors, but not direct enemies. Your worlds run parallel. This wolf is different from the ones that flee at the merest hint of your scent. He is bolder, perhaps younger, perhaps driven by a curiosity stronger than his caution. He takes one tentative step closer. The old man makes a low, clicking sound with his tongue. The wolf stops, his body tense, a standoff. But then your sister does something astonishing. She slowly, ever so slowly, reaches for a fragment of bone from the eland, one with a few stubborn shreds of dried sinew still attached. She does not throw it at him to drive him away, nor does she toss it to him like a reward. Instead, she places it carefully on the ground at the very edge of the overhang's shadow, right on the line between your world and his. Then she sits back, resuming her weaving, her movements deliberately calm and uninterested. The message is not in the gift, but in the placement. This is ours, that is yours. This piece is for the in-between. The wolf watches her, then you, then the bone. His nose twitches, minutes stretch. The cicadas begin their evening song. Finally, with a movement so swift it's a blur, he darts in. His jaws snap up the bone fragment, and he is gone, vanishing back into the thickening twilight as silently as he appeared. The camp exhales. No one speaks, but a new concept has been introduced, as fragile as a spider's web and as revolutionary as the first tool. It is the concept of treaty, of a non-aggression pact with the wild. The wolf did not beg. You did not dominate. A transaction occurred on neutral ground. He got a morsel. You got safety, information, and the faint, thrilling possibility of something other than eternal war with the world of teeth and hunger. You got a witness who is not prey and not predator, but something in the middle. Perhaps one day a partner. The firelight, real or metaphorical, does not just push the dark back. It creates a circle, and tonight, for the first time, you have deliberately allowed something from the wild to touch the edge of that circle without violence. The boundary of your world has just become more interesting and more porous. The twilight deepens, swallowing the last of the wolf's gray form. A profound quiet follows, different from the tense silence of his presence. It is a quiet of completion, of a threshold crossed. The camp settles into the rhythms of the impending night. The child, still pressed against your sister from the wolf's visitation, begins to fuss, his energy fraying at the edges with tiredness and the lingering echo of excitement. His small body trembles with unmet need not for food. but for the assurance that the world, so full of sharp edges and sudden shadows, is ultimately a safe place to close one's eyes. Your sister gathers him into her lap. She does not speak words of comfort, for words are still clumsy tools for such a delicate task. Instead, she begins to rock, a slow, swaying motion that mirrors the gentle swing of the grasslands in a breeze. And from her throat comes a sound. It is not a song with words or melody as later ages will know it. It is a low, resonant hum, a vibration that starts deep in her chest and fills the space between her body and his. The sound is pure texture. It is the auditory equivalent of fur, of warm darkness, of a heartbeat heard from the inside. It has no beginning and no end. It is a continuous, soft loop of sound, as constant as breath. She varies it slightly, sometimes deepening the pitch, sometimes letting it rise into a faint, airy whistle through barely parted lips, then sinking back into the foundational hum. It is a sound that says nothing and everything. It says, I am here, the danger is past, the world is held. You watch as the magic works. The child's tense little fists, clenched in the fabric of her hide wrap, slowly uncurl. His breathing, which had been quick and shallow, begins to sink with the rhythmic rise and fall of her chest and the pulse of her hum. His eyelids, fighting a desperate battle, grow heavy. The hum is a fence built of sound, a soft wall that keeps the chaos of the day, the shrieking hyenas, the cracking bone, the watching wolf at bay. Inside this sonic cocoon, there is only the present vibration, the warmth, the safety of containment. This is the first art, not the art of representation, like the paintings that will come, but the art of pure effect. It is a technology of emotion, a tool for sculpting a state of being in another. The lullaby does not describe peace. It manufactures it, note by wordless note. The old man listens, his own grizzled head nodding in time. You feel your own breath deepening, the last coiling tensions of the scavenge and the argument unwinding within you. Her hum is a service to the entire camp, a psychic balm. It declares that the time for action is over, the time for healing, for integration, for the gentle descent into the vulnerable state of sleep has begun. As the child finally succumbs, his head lolling heavily against her, the hum softens but does not cease. It becomes part of the evening's fabric, as natural as the chirp of the first crickets. With the child asleep, a different kind of quiet emerges, a practical quiet. The business of the day is over, but the maintenance of capability is a never-ending task. Your eyes fall on your spear, leaning against the sandstone wall where you left it this morning. In the frantic events of the day, you had forgotten it. Now, in the calm, you see its flaws. The lashings of sinew, dried by 100 suns and wetted by 12 rains, have grown brittle. The smooth bindings that held the sharp flint spearhead firmly to the heavy ashwood shaft are fraying. A failure here, during the thrust into a buffalo's side, or the parry of a rival's charge, would be fatal. The day's survival earns you the night's repair. You pull the spear into your lap. The motion is ritualistic. You run your hands along its length, feeling for imperfections in the wood, a crack, a soft spot. You test the flex. It is good. Then your fingers go to the binding. This is where your focus narrows to a point as sharp as the flint itself. You pick at the old sinew with a fingernail. It crumbles to dust. It must all be replaced. You reach for your small kit, a fold of leather holding essentials. A few flakes of stone, a lump of ochre, a ball of fibrous twine, and a precious length of fresh wet sinew salvaged from today's eland, cleaned and scraped. This sinew is still supple, strong with life's glue. You select a thin, tough strip. The work is meticulous, maddeningly slow. You must first carefully unwind the old, dead bindings without disturbing the perfect seating of the spearhead in its carved socket on the shaft. Each fragment of the old world must be removed to make way for the new. The evening light is failing, so you shift to sit where the last violet glow of the sky provides just enough illumination. Then you begin to relash. Over, pull tight. Under, pull tight. Cross, pull tight. Your movements are the masculine counterpart to your sister's weaving, equally repetitive, equally focused on structural integrity. But here the goal is not to create a vessel, but to ensure a point of lethal impact holds fast. This is an act of fidelity to your future self. You are not just fixing a tool. You are honoring the next hunt, the next confrontation, the next life or death moment that has not yet happened. You are telling yourself through action that you intend to be there for it, prepared. The old man watches you, his eyes reflecting the dim sky. He offers no advice. This is a skill you must own, but his presence is an audit. He will note the tightness of your wraps, the cleverness of your knots. Your skill here is a measure of your reliability to the band. As you work, coating the fresh sinew in a thin paste of eland brain matter from your pouch, a trick that will make it shrink and harden. Like iron, as it dries, you feel the day cycle closing. The frantic acquisition of energy, the scavenge, is followed by its distribution, the argument, then by the soothing of the community's spirit, the lullaby, and finally by the careful stewardship of the means of future acquisition, the mending. This is the orbit of survival, not a straight line of progress, but an endless, necessary loop of obtain, share, soothe, and prepare. As you tie the final knot, biting it off with your teeth, the first true stars appear. The spear, renewed, feels like an extension of your own renewed intent. You lay it down beside you, its fresh bindings gleaming palely in the starlight. The camp is at peace. The child sleeps. The tool is ready. The circle for this one night is complete. The only thing left to do is to watch the dark and listen. The mended spear rests against the cool stone, a line of potential energy in the sleeping dark. The deep, wordless hum has faded into the child's steady breath. The camp exists now in a watchful pause, the space between the day's deeds and the night's rest. It is in this space that memory, untethered from immediate need, begins to stir and reshape itself. The old man shifts, the dry rustle of his hide wrap breaking the silence. He is not looking at you, but at the empty space in the center of your camp, as if seeing a ghost there. He clears his throat, a sound like pebbles grinding. Then he speaks not to anyone, but to the event itself. He does not describe your clumsy misstep on the hidden branch, the twist of your ankle, the empty, dust-choked clearing. That is the useless truth. Instead, he begins to build a new truth, a better one. His voice, thin but precise, paints a scene. The wind was a traitor, he intones, his eyes narrowed as if squinting into a past only he can see. It swirled, telling our scent to the grass, whispering it to the zebra's ear. With this he absolved you of the failure. It was not your error, but the world's betrayal. He describes the eland not as a carcass you found, but as a spirit beast that presented itself. It stood as tall as two men, its horns like the roots of a lightning-struck tree. It saw the hunter, and knowing its time had come, it did not run. It lowered its head, a challenge to the brave. In his telling, the scavenge becomes a duel. The vultures and the jackal become a malevolent audience, the bone watchers waiting for a stumble. And then he describes you, not the lumping, desperate figure you were, but a being of focused power. The hunter raised a stone that bites. His breath was still. The world held its breath. He did not rush. He walked into the cloud of the bone watchers, and they fell silent before him. He mimes your blows with a slow, dramatic sweep of his bony arm. The stone bit flashed once, twice, tack, tack, and the great spirit beast sighed its breath into the sky, granting its strength to the people. You listen, a strange warmth spreading in your chest. You know the reality, the blood, the flies, the hissing vultures, the frantic slicing. But his story is more nourishing than the marrow. It transforms a messy, lucky find into an epic of courage and reciprocity. It gives the band an identity. They are not scavengers, but people worthy of a spirit beast's gift. The child, though asleep, perhaps hears the rhythm of it in his dreams. Your sister nods slowly, the story smoothing the rough edges of the day's anxiety. This is the alchemy of narrative. It does not record events. It digests them, extracts their meaning, and turns the base metal of random happenstance into the gold of myth. The story is now more real than the memory. It is a version that will be remembered, told, and believed. It is the band's way of claiming dignity from chaos. By the time he finishes with a gesture of the eland spirit ascending, the failure is gone, erased. In its place is a legend, and you are its hero. The story has fed a different kind of hunger. As the last echo of his tale fades, the silence that returns is different. It is no longer empty, but charged with a newly created myth. Your eyes, lifted from the old man's face, are drawn upward, past the rim of the overhang, into the vast expanse now dusted with countless points of cold fire. The story connected you to the earth. The stars pull you toward the infinite. At first, you simply watch them appear, one by one, then in clusters, until the black velvet of the sky is riddled with their light. They are not just lights, they are arranged. The old man follows your gaze. He points a trembling finger, not at one star, but at its shape. "See the herd," he whispers. 7 bright stars in a familiar lopsided pattern. The bull at the front, the cows following. You see it. Once named, the random scatter becomes a clear, moving picture. He traces a line with his finger, and there the hunter who follows them forever. He shows you 3 stars for a belt, a bright one for a shoulder. This is not science, it is storytelling on a cosmic scale. But within the story lies a terrifying, wonderful observation. The old man's hand sweeps slowly from east to west. The herd walks the sky path. Every night, the same path. It starts here. He points to a gap between 2 hills on the eastern horizon, and it dies there. He points to the western cliffs. But it is born again, in the same place, after the sun walks its own path. A profound question forms. Not in words, but as a sinking, dizzying feeling in your gut. If they follow a path, who made the path? The hyena runs where it wills. The herd grazes where the grass is, but the stars, they are obedient to a law unimaginably vast. Their perfect, predictable journey hints at a mind, a will, an order so gigantic it makes the social laws of the meat share seem like the quarrels of ants. You look from the obedient stars to the sleeping child, to your mended spear, to the old man's knowing face. The connection is made, though you could never articulate it. The same force that commands the stars to march, does it see this tiny camp? Does it care about the outcome of the hunt, the tightness of your sinew bindings, the success of the lullaby? Or are you and the eland and the wolf simply irrelevant dust beneath a clockwork of incomprehensible scale? The question is not what are the stars. The question, the first true philosophical terror and wonder, is, do the stories we tell about ourselves, the heroic hunts, the wise distributions matter to the universe that built the herd in the sky? There are no answers, only the cold, beautiful, and utterly indifferent glittering of the stars and the warm, fragile, story-filled bubble of life beneath them. You are both the teller of grand tales and a microscopic spectator of grander ones. The camp huddles in the space between these two truths, finding comfort in the first and a kind of sacred awe in the vast, silent question of the second. The night deepens, cradling both the myth and the mystery. The silent conversation with the stars stretches, a long, cool inhalation of the infinite. But the earth beneath you is warm and immediate. The old man's story still hangs in the air, a warm shield against the cold questions of the cosmos. Yet the stars' silent march is a reminder none of you can ignore. All paths end. The old man knows this better than any. His labored breath, the knobs of his spine pressing against his hide, the milky film over his eyes that now looks at the herd in the sky more than the herd on the plain, he is a walking lesson in conclusion. The camp's success today, the full bellies, the mended spear, only make the contrast more poignant. Life is here, vigorous in the child, potent in your muscles, sustaining in your sister's hands. And here, too, is its slow, inevitable ebbing. You do not just live with death. You curate it. Her hands so twisted with age they looked like the roots of the ancient acacia. She did not die in crisis, not from a claw or a fall. She simply diminished day by day, like an ember losing its heat, until one morning she did not wake. Her silence was different from sleep. It was a total, absolute stillness that seemed to draw all sound into it. There was no panic. Her body was light, a bundle of sticks and parchment skin. You carried her, not to a forgotten place, but to a specific one, a sheltered niche in the sandstone wall, away from the sleeping area, but within sight of the camp. It was a place for keeping, not discarding. The digging was hard work in the dry, rocky soil. You took turns with a digging stick, levering up the earth. It was not a grave to hide her, but to position her. When the shallow pit was ready, you did not lay her flat. You arranged her on her side, knees drawn up as if in sleep, facing the east, where the sun and the herd of stars are born. This was the first grammar of the afterlife, posture and direction. Then came the tools. This was not sentiment. It was logistics for a journey. Her favorite scraper, its edge worn smooth from a lifetime of cleaning hides, was placed in her curled hand. A necklace of ostrich eggshell beads, each disc laboriously ground and drilled, was left around her withered neck. A small, worn hand axe was laid by her feet. You did not say, "You will need these." The act itself was the statement. By placing the means of work and beauty beside her, you were refusing the finality of her stillness. You were declaring that the person was not the body, but a set of capabilities and relationships that must continue somewhere. The tools were a bridge. You covered her gently with the excavated earth, then piled stones atop the mound to mark the place and to keep the scavengers away. Now, 2 years later, you still sometimes glance at that stone pile. It is not a place of horror. It is an address. She is there, and she is equipped. In burying her with tools, you did not just dispose of the dead. You invented the ancestor. You gave death a job and a location. The awe of the stars is vast and indifferent. The reverence of the burial is intimate and demanding. It creates a parallel community of the still present past, watching, perhaps judging, certainly remembering. It turns mortality from a vanishing into a promotion. The memory of the burial, with its quiet, deliberate care, hangs in the air now, a counterweight to the old man's vibrant story. Both are ways of fighting oblivion. But the social world of the living is not all honor and memory. It is also a slippery, shifting landscape of individual desires that sometimes clash with the needs of the whole. As your eyes drop from the starry vault back to the dim faces around you, you see the old man watching your sister. She is carefully wrapping the remaining strips of eland meat in broad, waxy leaves, preparing to cache them in a cool crevice for tomorrow. His eyes follow a particularly choice, fatty piece as she folds it away. He wants it. Not for need, his share was fair, but for the taste, for the private pleasure of it tomorrow when the others are out. He is old. Pleasures are few and shrinking. He watches her tie the bundle with fibrous twine. He sees her place it at the back of the niche behind a stone. He notes the exact spot. Later, when she goes to the far side of the overhang to check on the child, he moves, not with stealth, but with a casual, entitled slowness. He hobbles over to the niche, pretending to examine the stone wall. His hand dips in, fingers closing around the specific bundle. He pulls it out, opens it just enough to confirm it is the fatty one, and quickly tucks it into a fold of his own wrap. You see it all. You are supposed to be on watch, gazing outward, but your periphery catches the sin. He turns and meets your eyes. For a long moment, you hold his gaze. His face shows no guilt, only a silent, granite challenge. I am old. I have earned this. What will you do? The law of the meat share is clear. The cash is communal. This is theft. To take it back would cause a shaming scene, a fracture in the band's fragile unity. To ignore it is to allow the law to be broken, to foster silent resentment. You do neither. You look at him, then you deliberately turn your head away, gazing back out into the night as if you saw nothing. You offer him not consent, but your silence. This is the first lie. Not a spoken falsehood, but a chosen omission, an active construction of an alternate reality where the theft did not happen. You lied to your sister, who will later discover a less choice piece of meat and perhaps blame her own memory. You lie to the band's social contract. But you also give a gift to the old man, dignity and a final private delight. Why? Because his story tonight gave the band a hero. Because his finger traced the herd in the sky and gave the chaos meaning. Because his knowledge of the never-fail spring is in his head, not yours. Because he will be under a pile of stones soon enough with a scraper in his hand. The calculus is no longer about calories, but about something more complex. Mercy, debt, and the cold pragmatism that values a living mind's loyalty over the strict letter of a law. The lie is a new, dangerous tool. It is the social equivalent of the hand axe, a sharp edge that can cut both ways. It can preserve peace as you hope it does now, or it can unravel trust if discovered. As you stare into the dark, hearing the old man's faint, contented sigh as he secretly fingers his prize, you understand that survival is not just about truth and falsehood, but about knowing which truths to uphold and which to deliberately, quietly bury. The silent conversation with the stars stretches, a long, cool inhalation of the infinite. But the earth beneath you is warm and immediate. The old man's story still hangs in the air, a warm shield against the cold questions of the cosmos. Yet the stars' silent march is a reminder none of you can ignore. All paths end. The old man knows this better than any. His labored breath, the knobs of his spine pressing against his hide, the milky film over his eyes, that now looks at the herd in the sky more than the herd on the plain. He is a walking lesson in conclusion. The camp's success today, the full bellies, the mended spear, only make the contrast more poignant. Life is here, vigorous in the child, potent in your muscles, sustaining in your sister's hands. And here, too, is its slow, inevitable ebbing. You do not just live with death. You curate it. Her hands so twisted with age they looked like the roots of the ancient acacia. She did not die in crisis, not from a claw or a fall. She simply diminished, day by day, like an ember losing its heat, until one morning she did not wake. Her silence was different from sleep. It was a total, absolute stillness that seemed to draw all sound into it. There was no panic. Her body was light, a bundle of sticks and parchment skin. You carried her not to a forgotten place, but to a specific one, a sheltered niche in the sandstone wall, away from the sleeping area, but within sight of the camp. It was a place for keeping, not discarding. The digging was hard work in the dry, rocky soil. You took turns with a digging stick, levering up the earth. It was not a grave to hide her, but to position her. When the shallow pit was ready, you did not lay her flat. You arranged her on her side, knees drawn up as if in sleep, facing the east, where the sun and the herd of stars are born. This was the first grammar of the afterlife, posture and direction. Then came the tools. This was not sentiment. It was logistics for a journey. Her favorite scraper, its edge worn smooth from a lifetime of cleaning hides, was placed in her curled hand. A necklace of ostrich eggshell beads, each disc laboriously ground and drilled, was left around her withered neck. A small, worn hand axe was laid by her feet. You did not say, "You will need these." The act itself was the statement. By placing the means of work and beauty beside her, you were refusing the finality of her stillness. You were declaring that the person was not the body, but a set of capabilities and relationships that must continue somewhere. The tools were a bridge. You covered her gently with the excavated earth, then piled stones atop the mound to mark the place and to keep the scavengers away. Now, 2 years later, you still sometimes glanced at that stone pile. It is not a place of horror, it is an address. She is there, and she is equipped. In burying her with tools, you did not just dispose of the dead. You invented the ancestor. You gave death a job and a location. The awe of the stars is vast and indifferent. The reverence of the burial is intimate and demanding. It creates a parallel community of the still present past, watching, perhaps judging, certainly remembering. It turns mortality from a vanishing into a promotion. The memory of the burial, with its quiet, deliberate care, hangs in the air now, a counterweight to the old man's vibrant story. Both are ways of fighting oblivion. But the social world of the living is not all honor and memory. It is also a slippery, shifting landscape of individual desires that sometimes clash with the needs of the whole. As your eyes drop from the starry vault back to the dim faces around you, you see the old man watching your sister. She is carefully wrapping the remaining strips of eland meat in broad, waxy leaves, preparing to cache them in a cool crevice for tomorrow. His eyes follow a particularly choice, fatty piece as she folds it away. He wants it. Not for need, his share was fair, but for the taste, for the private pleasure of it tomorrow when the others are out. He is old. Pleasures are few and shrinking. He watches her tie the bundle with fibrous twine. He sees her place it at the back of the niche behind his stone. He notes the exact spot. Later, when she goes to the far side of the overhang to check on the child, he moves. Not with stealth, but with a casual, entitled slowness. He hobbles over to the niche, pretending to examine the stone wall. His hand dips in, fingers closing around the specific bundle. He pulls it out, opens it just enough to confirm it is the fatty one, and quickly tucks it into a fold of his own wrap. You see it all. You are supposed to be on watch, gazing outward, but your periphery catches the sin. He turns and meets your eyes. For a long moment you hold his gaze. His face shows no guilt, only a silent granite challenge. I am old. I have earned this. What will you do? The law of the meat share is clear. The cash is communal. This is theft. To take it back would cause a shaming scene, a fracture in the band's fragile unity. To ignore it is to allow the law to be broken, to foster silent resentment. You do neither. You look at him, then you deliberately turn your head away, gazing back out into the night as if you saw nothing. You offer him not consent, but your silence. This is the first lie. Not a spoken falsehood, but a chosen omission, an active construction of an alternate reality where the theft did not happen. You lie to your sister, who will later discover a less choice piece of meat and perhaps blame her own memory. You lie to the band's social contract. But you also give a gift to the old man, dignity and a final, private delight. Why? Because his story tonight gave the band a hero. Because his finger traced the herd in the sky and gave the chaos meaning. Because his knowledge of the never-fail spring is in his head, not yours. Because he will be under a pile of stones soon enough with a scraper in his hand. The calculus is no longer about calories, but about something more complex. Mercy, debt, and the cold pragmatism that values a living mind's loyalty over the strict letter of a law. The lie is a new, dangerous tool. It is the social equivalent of the hand axe, a sharp edge that can cut both ways. It can preserve peace, as you hope it does now, or it can unravel trust if discovered. As you stare into the dark, hearing the old man's faint, contented sigh as he secretly fingers his prize, you understand that survival is not just about truth and falsehood, but about knowing which truths to uphold and which to deliberately, quietly bury. The silence you gifted the old man is a heavy cloak. It wraps around the camp, thick with the unspoken transgression. The stars continue their cold, lawful march, indifferent to the tiny drama of stolen meat and social compromise. Your watchful gaze into the darkness is no longer just for external threats. It now guards an internal secret. The peace feels fragile, counterfeit. It is in this state of heightened, guilty sensitivity that your nose, always parsing the wind, catches a new thread in the night's tapestry of scent. It is a smell from the cache niche. Not the clean, bloody smell of fresh meat, but something sweeter, sharper, almost sickly. It is the smell of change, of accident. The berry cache. Your sister had gathered a basket of dark, juicy berries late yesterday, stuffing them into a natural stone basin at the back of the niche to keep them from the sun. In the day's chaos, they were forgotten. Now, the weight of the berries on top has crushed those at the bottom. Their juices have pooled, warmed by the residual heat of the stone, and begun a quiet, magical revolt against their own nature. Curiosity overrides caution. You slip from your watch post and move to the niche. The meat bundle is disturbed, but you ignore that known secret. Your fingers find the stone basin. The scent is overpowering here. Fruit turned profound, sugar transformed into something heady and strange. You dip a finger into the pulpy, bubbling mass and bring it to your lips. The taste is a shock. The bright, tart sweetness of the berry is gone, replaced by a complex, prickling tang that numbs the tongue slightly and fills your sinuses with its perfume. It is not unpleasant. It is interesting. You take another, larger taste, scooping the fermented pulp. A warmth blooms in your stomach, different from the heat of cooked meat. It is a radiating, loosening warmth that seems to climb your spine. The sharp edges of the day, the pain in your ankle, the tension of the lie, the weight of the stars begin to soften, to blur at their boundaries. You return to your spot, the taste lingering. A pleasant fog settles over your thoughts. The guilt over the old man's theft seems less urgent, a distant problem. The terrifying vastness of the star herd feels more like a beautiful show put on for your mild amusement. Your limbs feel heavy, yet light. This is not sleep. This is an alteration. The world has not changed, but your relationship to it has been chemically rewritten. You have accidentally discovered a key to a door within your own mind. A door that leads away from the constant, grinding pressure of survival. You watch as your sister stirs, her own sharp senses catching the strange scent. She goes to the niche, examines the berry mush. She frowns, not in recognition, but in analytical curiosity. She too tastes it. You see her posture change, the ever-present line of tension in her shoulders easing. She looks at you, and in the dim light you see not alarm, but a shared, silent understanding. A discovery has been made. This is not food. It is something else. A medicine for the spirit, a social lubricant, a sacred accident. She carefully recovers the stone basin, not to discard it, but to protect it. This brew will be visited again, its effects studied, its role in the life of the band slowly defined. The first drug has been invented not for healing the body, but for bending the rigid walls of conscious reality. This chemical softening of the world is a welcome reprieve, but the night is a teacher of contrasts. Just as the inner tension dissolves, the outer world asserts a new, uncompromising reality. The fermented warmth in your blood has sharpened your hearing, or perhaps lowered your threshold for alarm. The usual night sounds, the insect chorus, the distant yip of a jackal, are a familiar canvas. Then a new sound paints itself across it. It begins as a vibration, so low it is felt more than heard through the soles of your feet. A deep, rhythmic crunch, like the greatest tree in the world being slowly, methodically snapped in half. Crunch, silence, crunch, silence. It is not the cough of a cat or the shriek of a hyena. It is a sound of immense, deliberate power, of weight beyond comprehension. It comes from the direction of the riverine forest, a place of thick shadows, even in daylight. Every soul in the camp is instantly, utterly awake. The child sits bolt upright, a whimper caught in his throat. Your sister is frozen, a leaf bundle half wrapped in her hands. The old man's eyes are wide, all traces of his secret contentment gone, replaced by primal fear. Your own pleasant fog evaporates, burned away by a rush of ice-cold adrenaline. Crunch. Silence. Crunch. It is moving, not quickly, but with terrifying inevitability. Each crunch is a footfall. Something is walking, something whose step breaks trees. You know every sound of this land, the patter of hooves, the pad of paws, the slither of scales. This sound belongs to none of them. This is the sound of the before time, of the monster stories so old they have no shape, only a feeling of crushing, ancient dread. Is it the great, hairy beast whose bones you sometimes find weathering out of cliffs? Bones longer than your whole body? Is it something that has no name because no one who saw it lived to describe it? The fear is total, paralyzing. It is not the fear of a predator you can outrun or outsmart. It is the fear of the unknown that is also immensely powerful. It is the fear that the map of your world is suddenly, catastrophically wrong, that just beyond the circle of your firelight and your knowledge, things walk that do not care about your hand axes, your social laws, or your fermented berries. Things that are a force of nature, like a landslide or a lightning strike, but animate. Crunch, silence. The sounds begin to recede, moving parallel to your camp but away, down toward the deeper river gorge. The tension in the camp is so taut it could sing. No one breathes. You listen as the horrific, methodical crunching grows fainter, fainter, until it is swallowed by the normal rustle of the night. Long minutes pass. Finally, the old man lets out a shuddering breath. "The mountain that walks," he whispers, giving the sound a name, dragging it from the void of the unknown into the realm of the conceivable. However terrifying, it drinks the river mud. It does not hunt us, but do not walk where it walks. The name is a lifeline. By naming it, he contains it slightly. It is no longer an infinite terror. It is a specific, avoidable danger. The mountain that walks. You will never see it. You hope to never hear it again, but now you know it exists. The world has just grown much larger and much more dangerous. The cozy concerns of theft and social tension are revealed in their true scale. Tiny, fragile dramas played out in a clearing, while beyond the light mountains of flesh and bone move through the darkness, rewriting the landscape with their footsteps. The fear of the new sound does not fade. It sinks into your bones, becoming a permanent part of your knowledge, a cold, hard nugget of humility at the very center of your being. The deep, receding tremors of the mountain that walks fade into a ringing silence. The normal night sounds, the insects, the distant howl feel thin and false now, like a fragile curtain drawn over a chasm. The old man's name for the terror is a spell, but its power is limited. It gives the unknown a shape, but it does not shrink the vast, indifferent world that holds such shapes. In the wake of that primal fear, a more domestic human fear arises. The fear of forgetting the rhythm of dangers, the schedule of bounty, the map of safe and unsafe times. The mind cannot hold it all. It needs an external crutch. Your eyes fall on the old man's walking stick, leaning against the wall beside him. It is not just a support, it is a document. Along its length, in a neat column, are notches. Dozens of them, some older and stained dark, others fresh and pale. You have seen him, at every full moon, take a sharp flake, and, with immense concentration, carve a new one. He catches your gaze. He lifts a stick, running his thumb over the notches, as if reading them. His voice is low, steadying itself against the recent terror by returning to a knowable ritual. This one, he says, his thumbnail catching on a deep, weathered nick, was the great rain that filled the valley and drove the lions to the high rock. He moves down. This one, the time the white dust fell from the sky, and the grazing was good for 2 hands of moons. Further down, a cluster of 4 notches close together. The birthing season of the great herd. Many calves, many hunts. He is not counting days. He is indexing events. Each notch is a bookmark in the flowing, chaotic text of time. A moon is not a measurement of 30 days. It is the cycle from one full silver disk to the next, a period of light for night hunting, a rhythm for female cycles, a reliable pulse in an unreliable world. By tying events to these notches, he is doing something revolutionary. He is creating a past that is not just a fog of memory, but a sequence, a story with a timeline. He points to a fresh, barely healed notch at the very end. This is the now moon. Then his finger hovers over the blank wood just beyond it. The next notch will be for the mountain that walks. He will encode the terror. He will make it a data point. It is the assertion that time is not just a river carrying you away, but a path you can look back upon. That the world, for all its chaos, might have cycles, repetitions, rules that can be recorded, and thus eventually understood. The stick is a tool against the amnesia that the universe seems to desire. It is a fist shaken at the stars, saying, "We were here. This happened. We remember." It turns collective memory from a fading rumor into a shared physical fact. The act of notching is a quiet intellectual defiance. A defiance can also be physical, communal, and monumental. As the first hint of false dawn bleeds the stars from the eastern sky, your mind, stirred by the old man's ordered notches, drifts to a story he told once of a distant place. A place where people did not just mark time, but moved the earth itself to mark something else. He spoke of travelers from the north who came to trade obsidian. They told of a hill not by a river or a forest, but in a dry, stony place. On this hill, people did not build huts for living or racks for drying meat. They did something senseless. They dragged giant stones, taller than 2 men, from a quarry a half-day's walk away. They dug great holes and stood the stones in circles, or in pairs, with a third laid across their tops, like a massive stone lintel. They carved the stones with shapes of animals, but then buried the carvings facing inward, so only the circle itself could see them. "Why?" you had asked, baffled. The old man had looked wistful. "They say it is a house for the sky, a place to gather when the herd in the stars stands on the back of the stone bull. They say the stones sing when the wind is right. A house for the sky." The concept burns in your mind with a strange allure. Your entire existence is about utility, the sharp edge, the water-carrying basket, the sheltering overhang. Every action is bent toward survival. But these people, they expend colossal, back-breaking effort for something that provides no food, no shelter, no direct advantage. They build a thing that is purely for something, for gathering, for watching the sky, for making the wind sing in a tuned way. The useless megalith is the most profound human invention yet. More than the hand axe or the berry brew, it represents a leap. It is the material proof that humans have needs beyond the physical, a need for collective ceremony, for aligning their lives with the cosmos, for creating a permanent, immovable place that exists for no reason other than meaning itself. It is a declaration. We are not just surviving here, we are witnessing. And we have built a bench for the sky to sit upon, so we may watch it properly. In your mind's eye you see it, the gray stones against the dawn sky, silent and immense. They are not tools to change the world, they are mirrors to hold it up to itself. They are a conversation with the mountain that walks, and the herd in the stars, saying, "You are vast, but see, we can make marks too." Our marks are ordered. Our marks invite you to a meeting. The megalith is the ultimate notch on the stick of time, but one carved not in wood, but in the spine of the earth. As the true dawn finally begins to gild the tops of the acacias, you feel a shift. The night of fear and discovery is ending. You have faced the unknown terror and begun the process of filing it away. You have contemplated a folly so grand it becomes a new kind of wisdom. The business of mere survival feels smaller now. There is a future shimmering on the horizon. A future where humans might not just react to the world, but engage with it in dialogue, through records, through stones, through stories etched in earth and sky. The day is coming, and with it a new kind of work. The dawn light, clear and cold, washes over the camp, revealing it in stark detail. The grandeur of the night's thoughts, the terror of the mountain, the order of the notches, the dream of megaliths retreats before the simple, physical truth of morning. You push yourself up from your sitting position. A symphony of protests greets you. It is not the sharp, specific pain of the twisted ankle from yesterday, which has subsided to a dull throb. This is deeper, more diffuse, a grinding stiffness in your right knee as you straighten it, a tight, sore pull across the muscles of your lower back, as if they have shortened during the night. The first unmistakable ache of age. It is a new kind of knowledge, written directly into your flesh. For years, your body has been a perfect instrument, a bundle of levers, springs, and sinews that obeyed your will without complaint. It recovered from cuts, bruises, and exhaustion with a resilient swiftness. Now it begins to offer commentary. The ache is a whisper from the future, a quiet, persistent reminder that this instrument is wearing down. It will not get better. It will only learn new, more creative ways to hurt. You stretch, and the cartilage in your knee grinds, a tiny, dry sound of friction that seems horrifically loud to you. You think of the old man's creaking joints, his slow, careful movements. You are not him, not yet, but you are on the path. This ache is the first milestone on the road to becoming him. It changes everything. The reckless sprint, the daring leap, the all-day pursuit. These are no longer simply acts of will. They are negotiations with a body that is starting to keep a ledger of its own. You look at your hands. The skin over the knuckles is a little looser, etched with a fine web of new lines that grime has settled into permanently. The strength is still there, but it feels different, more a matter of stubborn leverage than of explosive power. This is the hidden cost of every successful hunt, every scavenged feast. every long watch in the cold. The body is a finite resource, and you have begun the long, slow drawing down of the account. A profound melancholy washes over you, bittersweet. You see the child, sleeping with the perfect, limp repose of the undamaged. You see your sister, her hands still swift and sure at their tasks. Your own youth feels like a country you have left, whose borders have quietly closed behind you. You are in the new land now, the land of management and preservation, where the goal is not to conquer the day, but to strategically endure it. The hand axe in your grip is no longer just a weapon. It is a necessary compensator for the spring that is slowly leaving your step. Yet with this loss comes a strange clarity. The frantic energy of youth is spent on immediate things, the chase, the escape, the moment. This new, aching awareness turns your gaze to longer cycles, to the next season, the next birthing of the herd. You begin to think not as a hunter, but as a steward of your own dwindling future. And in doing so, your eyes fall on the grasses at the edge of your camp with a new kind of vision. You have always known the grasses. You know which ones have edible seeds you can beat into a gruel in lean times. You know which ones are good for thatch, for bedding, for weaving. But you have always thought of them as a condition of the landscape, like the wind or the rain, something that happens to a place. Now, kneeling to relieve the pressure on your knee, you look at a particular clump of wild barley. Its seed heads are full, nodding heavily. You pluck one. The seeds are small and tightly encased in a tough husk. It takes effort to get a tiny mouthful of starchy goodness. A lot of effort for little reward. It is food of last resort. But your mind, slowed by age and turned toward the future, performs a slow, audacious act of imagination. What if you did not just take what the grass offered? What if you could ask more of it? The thought is not a plan, but a vivid daydream. You picture not just this clump, but a whole slope covered with this grass. But in the dream, the seed heads are fatter, the husks thinner, or gone altogether. The stalks are sturdier, so they don't scatter their seed to the wind so easily, but hold it, waiting for you. In the dream, you are not bending and plucking. You are swinging a different kind of tool, not to kill, but to harvest. A sweep of your arm gathers a sheaf of these perfected stems. You are not chasing, you are collecting. The food comes to you. It is stored. It waits through the dry season, through the time when the herds migrate and the hunting is poor. It is a bulwark against the uncertainty that your aching body fears more than ever. The dream of the tame grass is the direct offspring of the first ache. It is the mind's attempt to build a future of less exertion, more security. It is agriculture glimpsed in its pre-conceptual state, not as a technology but as a deep bodily yearning for rest and reliability. You are not thinking of planting. You are thinking of encouraging, of maybe next season, clearing the thorny competitors away from this good clump, of maybe not harvesting all of it, but letting some of the best seeds fall right here, in this spot you have prepared. You let the wild seed head fall from your fingers. It is unchanged, but you are changed. You have looked at a piece of the wild and seen not just what it is, but what it might be for you. You have projected your own need for stability onto the biology of a plant. This is not domestication. It is the desire for domestication. It is the first crucial step, seeing the natural world not just as a partner in the dance of survival or a terrifying foe, but as raw material for a new kind of bargain. The dream is fragile, a soap bubble in the morning sun, but it contains within it the blueprint for walls, for granaries, for kings, and for all the burdens of the future. You rise, your knee protesting, your back tight. You are a hunter with a sore body, and the ghost of a farmer stream in your head. The day ahead is still a day of stone and chase, but a seed has been sown in the soil of your mind, and it will grow slowly, irresistibly, toward the light. The dream of the tame grass lingers like a sweet aftertaste, a mental refuge from the persistent ache in your joints. It speaks of stillness, of waiting, of abundance that does not have to be pursued across miles of aching savanna. But as you turn your gaze from the nodding barley to the broader vista of your camp, the dream immediately demands a defense. The seeds of a tamer world are also a feast for birds, for rodents, for the wandering herd that might trample your nascent hope into the dust. To invite a new kind of life, you must first define a new kind of space. You walk to the edge of the clearing where the grass meets the scattered scrub. Your eyes fall on a young, straight sapling of acacia, no thicker than your wrist. It is useless for a spear too flexible, but its straightness speaks to you. You take your hand axe and, with a few sharp, efficient blows, sever it at the base. You strip its few branches. You are not making a tool, a weapon, or a digging stick. You are making a statement. You carry the post to a spot just beyond the overhang's drip line, where the good black soil begins. Using a heavier stone as a maul, you drive the pointed end into the earth. Thump, thump. The sound is dull, final. The sapling stands upright, a solitary vertical line against the horizontal world. It does nothing. It shelters no one. It hides nothing. Its function is purely conceptual. It is the physical manifestation of a single revolutionary word. Here. Here is different from there. Here is where we intend for the grass to grow fatter. There is where the wild things roam. This post is the first grammatical mark in the language of property. It is a line drawn, not in the sand, but in the collective mind of your band, and you hope in the dim understanding of the beasts. It says, this patch of earth is now an idea. It has a purpose that is not the purpose of the wilderness. You look at it. The child comes over and touches it, puzzled. Your sister looks up from her weaving, her eyes narrowing as she comprehends. The old man nods slowly, a grim approval on his face. He understands the ambition and the burden. This post is an invitation to work and to conflict. It declares an investment in a specific place. It means you cannot simply walk away when the water dries or the herd moves. You have staked a claim, not just on food, but on future time in this location. The post is lonely. It begs for companions. You imagine a line of them, with vines strung between, a visible, fragile barrier. It is a laughable defense against a determined buffalo or a hungry elephant. But its power is not in physical strength. Its power is in the idea of the barrier. It is a social contract made visible, a rule enacted in wood and dirt. It is the tiny, brave ancestor of every wall, every border, every field edge that will ever be. You have just invented the checkbox on the form that will one day be titled Deed of Ownership. The work of defining space is intellectual, almost spiritual, but the reward it promises is brutally physical. You turn from the solitary post, and your eyes are drawn to the cache niche in the sandstone. For now it holds leftover meat, a few tubers, some bitter berries. But in your mind's eye, you see it full to overflowing with a different treasure, not the bloody, temporary bounty of the hunt, but the clean, dry, lasting bounty of the grass. The dream has a weight. You can feel it already. You have known hunger that gnaws, hunger that is a sharp, active pain. You have known the emptiness after a failed hunt, the desperate scraping for grubs and roots. But the hunger the dream of grain guards against is a different monster. It is the slow, draining hunger of the long, dry season, when the land bleaches white and the game vanishes. It is a passive, pervasive wasting. The stored grain in your imagination is the answer to that wasting. You picture it, not in a messy, bloody heap, but in a neat, dense mass. A woven basket, or better, a specially dug pit, lined with clay and fire-hardened, filled to the brim with tiny, hard seeds. You picture running your hands through them, a dry, rustling whisper that is the sound of security. Their weight is not a burden to carry, but an anchor against the tide of uncertainty. This weight is a new kind of power. The power of the spear is immediate and violent. The power of the stored grain is patient and profound. It changes time. It allows you to say no to a risky hunt. It allows the old man to eat without begging. It allows the child to grow strong even in a lean moon. It turns time from a predator that forces you into constant, desperate action into a resource you can wait out. But you feel the other side of this weight, too. It is a weight of responsibility and a magnet for danger. If you have it, others will want it. The argument over the meat share was a small, hot skirmish. The protection of the stored grain would be a permanent Cold War. That solitary fence post would need to become a palisade. The watch in the night would no longer be for lions, but for other bands with hungry eyes, for the envious and the desperate. The grain pit would not just store food. It would store conflict. It would demand guards, rules, a leader with the authority to say who eats and who does not when the basket is half empty. The weight is also the end of lightness, of mobility. The band that stays with its grain is a band that has tied its fate to a single plot of earth. It cannot follow the herds. It must defend its hill, its water, its stored life. It is a commitment of blood and bone. You look from the dreaming of the heavy grain pit back to the reality of the single silly fence post. They are two ends of the same idea. The post is the promise. The grain is the prize, and the prison. You have dreamed of security, and in that dream, you have inadvertently invented the siege, the tax, and the king. Your aching body yearns for the rest the grain promises. Your hunter's spirit feels a first vague tremor of claustrophobia. The path from the post to the granary is the path out of one kind of suffering and into a new, more complex world of worries. You have taken the first irrevocable step. The fence post stands, a silent sentinel for a future of wait and worry. Your mind, having ventured into the abstract realms of boundaries and granaries, now seeks a different kind of creation. One, not of restriction, but of formation. The ache in your body yearns for ease. The dream of stored grain yearns for a vessel. You think of the cracked, sun-dried clay bowls you sometimes fashion hurriedly to hold water or berries. They are crude, lopsided, and fragile. They serve, but they do not please. They are like the wild grass, something to be used, not something to be perfected. Your gaze falls on a flat, smooth stone near the hearth, used for grinding ochre. A memory, perhaps from watching a child spin a round pebble, sparks a connection. What if the clay, like the world, could be made to turn? What if you could stand above it and with a gentle, constant force convince its chaos to find a perfect, symmetrical shape? The first attempt is a humble pivot. You find a rounded cobble and sink it into a patch of soft earth until its top is level with the ground, creating a stable socket. You find another flatter stone with a dimple in its center. This is your wheelhead. You place a lump of wet, well-kneaded clay in the very center of this stone. Then you begin. You do not spin it with a flick. You set it turning with a slow, steady push of your hand, and then you keep it alive. A continuous, gentle pressure with your fingertips on the rim of the stone. Push, release. Push, release. It finds a rhythm. A hum, a vibration enters the stone, the clay, your fingertips. The world narrows to this axis. At first, nothing happens. The clay wobbles, a stubborn, blind lump. You wet your hands. You apply pressure not to the top, but to the sides as the lump spins. Centrifugal force, an invisible hand you have summoned, begins to work with you. The clay yields. It rises. Your fingers, stationed inside the rising column, hollow it out. Your other hand, cupped outside, shapes its curve. This is a different conversation from knapping flint. With stone, you ask for a fracture or cleavage. You are a persuader of breaks. With spinning clay, you are a midwife of form. You are not removing what is unwanted. You are guiding what wants to be into existence. The clay tells you its limits too fast, and it flies apart. Too much pressure, and it collapses. You must listen with your palms. And then, the miracle. Under your coaxing hands, the wobbling lump becomes a perfect, rising cylinder. Then, with a subtle inward pull of your thumbs, the cylinder gracefully curves inward, forming a bowl. The shape is symmetrical, smooth, born from motion and balance. You slow the wheel. It stops. There it sits, a bowl that did not exist 100 heartbeats ago. It is born of circular motion and vertical intent. It is the first truly human-made shape, not found, not fractured, but conjured from formlessness by rhythm and touch. The act is hypnotic, deeply satisfying. It creates order from mud. It promises not just a container for grain, but beauty in the act of containment. The potter's wheel is a machine for producing harmony. As you set the bowl aside to dry, to later be fired hard in the hearth's heart, you understand that you have not just made a thing. You have created a method for making endless, perfect copies of an idea. This is the true beginning of industry. The fence post defines space. The potter's wheel defines form. But form and space come together around one central point: distribution. The perfect new bowl, once fired, will hold something. Who will decide what it holds, and for whom? The memory of the meat share argument is fresh, but that was about a sudden windfall. The stored grain, the perfect bowls, these speak of a permanent, managed surplus. They necessitate a new kind of person. He is not the strongest hunter. He is not the oldest storyteller. He is the one who remembers. He remembers where the best clay is found. He remembers the exact angle to hold the digging stick for the deepest tubers. He negotiated the last truce with the band from the river valley. His voice, while not the loudest, is the one others pause to hear. He is the first among equals, but the first is starting to mean something more. You see it at the next meal. The meat is distributed, as usual, by your sister. But when the wild onion stew is poured into the new, fine bowls from the wheel, something subtle occurs. The chief, let us call him, that does not receive the same portion as everyone else. His bowl is filled just a little bit more, not double. Not a gluttonous excess, but a visible, undeniable extra ladleful. No one protests, no old man rumbles, no sister's hand hesitates. The extra portion is given not as a theft, but as a due. It is a silent, collective agreement. The reasoning is unspoken, but understood by all. He carries the mental map. He bears the weight of diplomacy. His thoughts, which plan for the dry season and mediate disputes, are a form of labor. They are labor that feeds the whole band, not with calories, but with the structure that makes calories possible. The extra stew is his fuel. He accepts it without comment, without gloating. To draw attention to it would break the spell. He eats calmly, but his position in the circle has changed. He is now slightly outside the pure communism of the hunt. He is the first person whose contribution is abstract and whose reward is a tangible, regular surplus. This is the birth of social stratification. It is not born of violence or seizure, but of gradual, consensual specialization. The chief's extra bowl is the prototype for the king's tithe, the priest's offering, the administrator's salary. You watch him eat, and you feel no resentment, only a cold clarity. The fence post creates property. The potter's wheel creates standardized goods. The stored grain creates wealth. And wealth, however small, requires management. The manager earns his fee. It is logical, inevitable. The perfect, symmetrical bowl in his hands is no longer just a container for stew. It is a symbol of a new order, where value is decided not just by strength of arm, but by strength of mind and role. The circle of equals is beginning to develop a hierarchy, as gently and as inevitably as a potter's hands shape a spinning mound of clay. The chief's extra bowl sits empty, a clean, fired circle in the firelight. The social equation has been silently balanced for the night, but the new order creates new vulnerabilities. The fence post, the dreaming grain pit, the chief's status, these are not just ideas. They are declarations of value, and anything of value attracts attention. The watch you keep is no longer just for lions and the mountain that walks. It is now also for the two-legged shadows who might covet your post, your grain, your order. You take your place at the edge of the firelight, your back to the warm rock, your eyes scanning the line where the known world dissolves into the black. This vigil is different. Before, the night watch was a biological necessity, a sensory extension of the camp's sleeping bodies, alert for the crunch of a predator or the strange silence that means something is stalking. It was defensive, instinctive. Now it is strategic. You are not just guarding flesh. You are guarding an investment. You are the human counterpart to the fence post, a sentinel for a concept. Your ears are tuned not just for danger, but for the specific subtle wrongness that might indicate a human threat. The snap of a twig under a careless foot, not a heavy paw. The faint metallic chink of a stone tool against another. The low furtive murmur of voices where there should be only night sounds. The fire, once a beacon of warmth and community, now feels like a liability. It paints your camp in a circle of flickering orange, making you perfectly visible, while leaving the surrounding darkness impenetrable. You are on stage. You shift to the very edge of the light, letting your eyes adjust to the deeper dark beyond. You become a shadow yourself. This watch is lonely in a new way. It carries the weight of future consequence. If you fail, it is not just a life lost. It is the dream of stored grain, the authority of the chief, the fragile beginning of your settled world that could be scattered or stolen. The pressure is a cognitive burden. You must interpret every rustle, weigh every silence. Is that movement in the grass a hyena or a man crawling? Is the absence of the usual owls call a sign of a human presence below its tree? You hold your spear, the mended one, its bindings tight. It feels different tonight. It is no longer just a tool for hunting food, but a tool for enforcing a boundary, for protecting an idea. Its purpose has expanded from the biological to the political. You are the first soldier, standing guard over the first protestate. The long, slow hours stretch. Your mind, to stay alert, rehearses the new layout of your world. The fence post is there, the cache is there, the chief sleeps there. You are mapping assets. This is the birth of tactics, of territory. The night watch is no longer an animal function. It is a civic duty. As the deepest part of the night passes, and the stars begin their slow wheel toward dawn, the intense vigilance ebbs. The immediate threat seems to recede with the cooling temperature. Your gaze, so long fixed on the threatening dark, turns inward to the softer sleeping shapes of your band. It falls on the child, curled beside your sister. In the faint, residual glow of the embers, you see something in his loosely curled hand. It is not a tool, not a weapon, not food. It is a tiny, lumpy shape made of cold, unfired clay. You lean closer. In his palm rests a crude, unmistakable form. 4 stubby legs, a sausage body, a pinched lump for a head with 2 poked holes for eyes. It is an animal, a goat perhaps, or a small antelope. The likeness is terrible, laughable, but the intent is monumental. He did not make this to use. He did not make it to eat, or to carry water, or to scare away a predator. He made it because the shape of the animal lived in his mind, and he had some leftover clay from the day's potting, and he wanted to see the thought outside of himself. This is not craft. This is art. It is the pure, unnecessary act of creation for the sake of representation, for the joy of making the internal external. You stare at this tiny, fragile thing. It is more revolutionary than the potter's wheel. The wheel made a better bowl. This lump of clay makes a new world, a parallel world of imagination and play. The child, in his sleep, holds a universe where animals are small, inert, and subject to his whims. He has performed magic. He has stopped the galloping, dangerous, living antelope and transformed it into a static, safe, possessible object. This is the birth of symbolic thought in its purest form. The fence post is a symbol for mine. The notched stick is a symbol for them. This clay goat is a symbol for antelope, divorced from all its antelope-ness, its speed, its smell, its flight, its life. It is an idea captured in mud. In this simple figurine lies the seed of everything, of storytelling beyond the campfire brag, of religious idolatry, of map-making, of written language. It is the proof that the human mind does not just want to survive in the world, but to recreate it, to make smaller, safer versions of it that can be controlled, admired, and understood. A profound tenderness washes over you, mingling with the exhaustion of the watch. You are guarding a fence post for a future of grain. He is building a menagerie in his mind. Your work is about necessity and fear. His play is about possibility and joy. Both are essential to the strange, struggling, glorious project of being human. You cover his small hand with yours for a moment, feeling the cool clay animal beneath your palm. Then you return to your watch, your eyes back on the dark line, but you are changed. You are no longer just guarding stores and status. You are guarding the future, a future that holds not just granaries and chiefs, but also poets, artists, and makers of tiny, perfect, useless wonders. The dawn, when it comes, will light a world that is infinitely more complex and more beautiful than the one you guarded at midnight. But at the very heart of the camp, stirring the embers of the central fire with a quiet, focused intensity, he is the one who talks to fire, not like the rest of you, who use it for warmth, for defense, for cooking. He converses with it. You've watched him for seasons. While others see a hungry, dangerous beast to be fed and contained, he sees a transformative womb. He is the one who took the strange, green malachite stones traded from the distant hills and, through a process of selective feeding with certain grasses and a patient, bellows-driven coaxing of the coals, persuaded the stone to weep a heavy, glowing tear that cooled into a bead of reddish metal. But the bead was just a beginning, a parlor trick. His secret runs deeper. You see it now. In the pre-dawn gloom, he has built a small, clay-lined furnace, a womb of his own design. Inside is not green stone, but a mix of a different, duller ore and a particular kind of charcoal he makes from a dense, slow-burning wood. He works the goatskin bellows, his arms moving with a steady, rhythmic push-pull. The fire does not roar. It whispers with an intense, blue-tinged heat you can feel on your face from 10 paces away. He is not melting stone now. He is performing alchemy on Earth itself. This is the birth of true metallurgy. The secret is not just the heat, but the atmosphere inside that clay womb, a breathless, hungry environment he creates by adding crushed bones to the mix, which steals impurities away, leaving behind a purer, more fluid metal. He is not just extracting. He is refining. He is teaching the earth to give up a new kind of child, one that is born liquid, malleable, and capable of being reborn endlessly in new forms. When he breaks the furnace open, the glow is not the red of embers, but the fierce, solar yellow of liquid bronze, pooled in a crucible like captured sunlight. This is power made tangible, power over the very elements. The smith's secret is the knowledge that the world is not fixed. Its substances can be broken, combined, and reborn into something stronger, sharper, more perfect. He holds the recipe for progress in his ash-stained hands. His work will make axes that can clear forests for fields, swords that will enforce the chief's will, and ornaments that will solidify the hierarchy of the extra bowl. He is the quiet architect of the coming age, his furnace the engine of empires yet undreamed. As he pours the glowing stream into a stone mold for a new, stronger axe head, you understand. The fence post defined land. The smith is now defining the tools with which that land will be conquered, owned, and worked. The balance of the world is tilting on the pivot of his bellows. The smith's new axe, cooling in its mold, is a promise of a different kind of labor. Not the chase, not the patient tending of wild grasses, but the systematic, brutal subjugation of the land. As the sun finally crests the horizon, painting the savanna in gold and orange, its light falls on a figure standing alone on a low rise overlooking the camp. It is the last pure hunter. Not you with your aching knees and your dreams of grain, but an older one, a contemporary of the old storyteller. He did not join in the potting or the fence building. His world is the track, the wind, the herd. He stands, leaning on his long, fire-hardened spear, watching a scene in the flatland below. The chief, the smith, and 2 others are engaged in a bizarre, slow-moving pantomime. The smith's new bronze axe head is hafted not to a short handle, but to a long, curved piece of wood. It exposes the raw, damp underearth to the sun. It is a violence, but a controlled, geometric violence. A line is being drawn, long and straight, a deliberate scar upon the skin of the earth. The last hunter watches. He does not see abundance or security. He sees sacrilege. He sees the end of a contract. His contract with the world was one of negotiation and respect. He followed the herds. He did not command them. He took what he needed and left the rest to the cycle. The land gave, and he accepted its terms. This plow is a new contract. It is a declaration of ownership and demand. It says this patch of earth will now produce what I choose, in the quantity I demand. I will break your skin, rearrange your guts, and plant my own children in your flesh. It is the ultimate expression of the dream of the tame grass, made monstrously, effectively real. He feels a profound grief, a loneliness that has nothing to do with being alone. He is witnessing the death of his world. The ache in his heart is the echo of an epoch passing. He shoulders his spear, its flint point once the pinnacle of technology, now looking as ancient and fragile as a bird's bone against the promise of the gleaming bronze share. He does not head toward the camp with its new smells of metal and turned earth. He walks away into the still wild grassland, following a path only he can see, leaving behind the straight lines and the stored grain and the chief's extra bowl. He carries with him the old, unbounded world in his soul, even as its physical manifestation vanishes behind him, furrow by deliberate furrow. The sun climbs, lighting both the hunter on his lonely path and the straight, fertile scar of the first field. The long collective day of humanity is over. The age of history, with all its ordered glory and its terrible specific weights, has begun. The long night of becoming is over. You have moved through the collective day of our species, from the primal dark to the collaborative light, from the silent fear of the unknown to the hum of the furnace and the straight line of the plow. The hunter's path vanishes into the wild grass. The plow's furrow catches the morning sun. Both are true. One is the world we came from. The other is the world we are making. There is no going back, only forward into the light of this new, complicated day. Remember the feel of the cool ash, the taste of the first water, the rhythm of the weaving and the lullaby's hum, the weight of the tool, the weight of the secret, the weight of the grain. These are the textures of our origin, the quiet, patient genius that built the stage for all the drama to come. Now, let it all go. Let the images soften. Let the sounds of the fire, the wind, and the turning wheel fade into a gentle silence. You have journeyed to the very beginning and found it was not a single point, but a long, patient dawn. The story of us is just beginning, but your part in this telling is complete. Rest now in the deep peace that comes after a long journey. The world turns, the stars hold their watch. You are home.